So I have a BA in economics and another BA in international relations. I had this keen interest in trying out cracking the civil service exams. By degree, I'm not an engineer. That's like the number one issue. And the second issue is that I have this gap in my career. Because you can only bargain for skills that you consider yourself above the average. Identify projects which you can relate to the problem.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Learning Bridge. I hope you guys are doing good and staying safe. So I am back with another amazing and really interesting story for all the aspiring data professionals. And this story will be super motivational for all such folks who are coming from totally non-tech kind of background. Because today I will be having a discussion with amazing personality. Because first he completed his graduation in BA Economics and then he came back to India and prepared for civil services, and unfortunately that didn't work out. But that was not the end. He was so much interested in the tech, and after that failure he actually started his career as a data analytics engineer. So pretty amazing story. We will deep dive into his life, and this will boost the confidence of all such people who are having at least 3 to 4 years of gap in their resume and coming from totally non-tech background like BA, BCom, etc. So let's learn from his experience that how did he actually did this kind of transition in data analytics. And after hearing his story, if you also feel confident, then hit the like button, share this video, and if you're new to the channel, then subscribe and press the notification icon. Alright, so thank you so much Rohith for joining me on this amazing podcast, and this is a very different story, a different sort of hustle. And I'm pretty sure this will inspire a lot of candidates, aspiring data professionals. But it would be really great if you can give a short introduction to the audience and anything about your past background you want to share.
Sure. I'm Rohith. I was born in Andhra Pradesh but raised in Hyderabad. I did majority of my schooling in Hyderabad. And for my undergrad, I had got a scholarship to go to the United States. And after my 10th grade, I was pretty good math and science student. But when I started moving into my 11th and 12th, I was more interested in economics and political science and other subjects like that. So I followed my passion and went to do the same in my undergrad. So I have a BA in economics and another BA in international relations. When I was in India, I initially was opposed to working in glass buildings. I was like, if I wanted to do that, maybe I should just stick around in the US, right? So when I was here, I had this keen interest in trying out cracking the civil service exams.
Okay.
And that didn't go out too well. I did try for 3 years and then couldn't make it through. And then the pandemic hit. So most things were put on a hold, apart from the IT industry, which was on overdrive during the pandemic. So I was like, maybe I should leverage some of my skills that I have and try get into the industry and start my career building process, because I didn't want to delay it much further. And there was a lot of uncertainties during the initial phase of the pandemic that, you know, I thought maybe being a little decisive now will reap fruits a little later.
So you did your graduation in BA Economics and then came back to India and tried for civil services for 3.5 years. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. So, but after that, out of nowhere, how did you get to know about data analytics? How did you complete this transition? How did it actually happen?
I guess the answer is pretty simple, right? I wanted to work with math, right? Because though I wasn't an engineer, I was always pretty good at math.
Okay.
You know, so on the data analytics side of it, a lot of it, at least a lot of the complexity of it is in the math, right? If we go the web designing route, or if we go into the app making route, the complexity, though there is good math, but a lot of value there is derived from design elements and like user experience workflows and your knowledge with that, right? So data analytics or things that are focused on data kind of remove all of the peripheral layers out and then just makes you focused on that. So I thought it was very specific and it's something that was in tune with some of the things that I learned.
Okay.
So it was not a complicated decision for me to make. And even personally, I've always been a great, like most of my decisions are backed by data,
Okay.
right? I don't consider testimonial from my favorite friends as being the best advice, right? I'd rather get data from anonymous and then take actions on that. So from my personality point of view and the skill set that I brought to the table, it was the smoothest transition that I could have taken.
Okay, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And maybe just a follow-up question, because you said you were pretty much interested in tech, but when you were preparing for the UPSC, 3.5 years of gap, completely like I can feel like you might be disconnected with the tech world and IT. You're focused completely on the UPSC prep. Still, you were self-motivated enough to kickstart your journey in data analytics.
Yeah, I mean, in the tech world, there's a lot of things that seem to change really fast, but in reality, they don't.
Okay.
Right? The tech world is very slow moving at the enterprise level, but you know, there's always change. It's constantly changing. But like impactful change is just once in a decade kind of thing, right? So if you want me to give you an example, even today, the most valuable skill for any fresher is SQL. And even if you go back a decade or a decade and a half ago, it was still the most valuable skill a fresher could have, right? So there's no real change in that. Maybe you're using different tooling, different frameworks, but you know, HTTP is HTTP, web browsers are web browsers, databases are databases. I mean, the most impactful things haven't changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I was pretty good with my basics. My feed on my Android or my Windows laptop, whenever I'd go to my feed, there would be enough tech articles there for me to still feel that I'm a part of that ecosystem. It's not entirely taken over by my recent cookies of UPSC, right? So that's how I kept in touch with the field, and that's what made my transition easier. And I always liked reading tech, right? So reading is one thing that definitely made my life a whole lot easier.
I have been receiving these queries related to the gap years. So you also had like more than 3.5 years of gap because that civil service preparation part, right? So when you were applying for the jobs like in the data analytics role in different companies, so companies were raising any kind of concern related to your gap, why is that gap, and what kind of hurdles that year gap actually created in your journey?
In my case, I have two issues, right? Not just one. One is by degree, I'm not an engineer.
Yes.
Right? That's like the number one issue. And the second issue is that I have this gap in my career, right? So maybe a lot of your audience will have one of those problems and not both, hopefully. But even if they have both, I might be an example that you can overcome that, right? Yeah. So from the point of view of the difficulties I was facing, right? Number one, so that's why I broke it down into two problems. So nowadays, the way recruiting works is you have a recruiter who has access to Naukri or Monster, or Dice, or Indeed, one of these platforms. And what they're doing is they're getting a requirement and they're just keyword searching.
Yeah.
Right? And based on that, you need to get your profile filtered out. And that route, for me, for my profile, unless I'm lying there, is not going to filter my profile out. Just because I don't have that degree and don't have that experience on paper, right? Yeah. So that was a playing field that I know I was going to be handicapped or disabled even, right? So I never took that route. I went out, made efforts to kind of build a network and go the referral route, right? Because when you go on the referral route, your resume goes off from that pool and onto the stack, right? That's all I was looking for. Once I was on the stack of resumes that were going to get interviewed, I had good belief in my skills and my communication. and some attitudinal aspects that I have that, I'm quite honest, and that honesty kind of feeds into my confidence as well.
Okay.
So I just took all of these into account and went the referral route and pitched my resumes to a couple of senior members in my network, and they eventually got me an interview. Like, I interviewed at a couple of places, and fortunately both the places wanted me to work with them. I thought I was at a dead end, but at the end of the dead end, I was forked with a couple of choices and make a decision there, right? So it's never a lost game. You just have to have the zeal to keep learning, think deeper about the problems and the impact of the problems, and just keep being a good problem solver, right?
Yeah.
There are enough problems out there that someone will say, hey, can you come help us solve our problems?
Based on your experience, since you are coming from non-tech and non-CS background, right? Not, although like you explore tech by your own, but from the degree perspective or from the paper perspective, you are coming from the non-tech and non-CS background. So what is the right path or the roadmap in terms of the skill sets, or in terms of anything which you think could be helpful stuff for the aspiring data professionals to become a data analyst? So you can pour that experience, whatever you have faced so far.
So let me try to put this in a framework, right? So the most important thing for any aspiring data professional to first have good clarity and command over is why we do data analytics, right? The why part, if you're stumbling on why we do this, then, that's a no-no. That's a flag, immediate flag, right? So you should be very full-fledged on why we do this. And those have definitive answers. Then how we do this, there's a bunch of routes that you can take, and it really depends on the particular case, right?
Yeah.
And to answer the how part, once you get into the how to do it part, there will be some tools that you need to learn, and you don't need to have a degree in computer science to learn those tools, right?
Correct.
By that standard, everyone that's using Excel should probably have a computer science degree, and as we know, that's not the case, right? Everyone from an accountant to a nurse, admin at a hospital, everyone uses Excel.
Yeah.
So it's just a tool. You don't need to have a computer science degree to use that tool. I got briefly trained at Odin School, and the bundle of skills that Odin School teaches you are rigorous, and they are fundamental to any job in the field of data science, right? And to enumerate them, you have the first and foremost skill is learning, if you have a bunch of data, whether it be in a database or it's on a table, how do you ask questions of your data? So they'll teach you that querying language, which is universally SQL, right?
Okay.
So they might not teach you how to go create a database, or partition a database, or replicate a database, or all of that. But given the source of your data, they'll teach you enough SQL so you can ask the data all the queries to your liking, right? So they'll teach you the language of data. And then it so happens because of the numerous excellent libraries that Python has for data processing and visualization and all of that. Odin School also gives you a good introduction to Python with a focus on those 3 or 4 libraries that are most used in data science. Again, to name them, it's things like NumPy, numerical Python, Pandas, which is for panel data, a couple of visualization libraries, like Matplotlib or Seaborn, or even some of the more newer, fancier visualization libraries, right? Which use a bunch of JavaScript in them. But they do teach you that the data stack, if you must call it that. And then they teach you need to have good skills on the theoretical side, like, because all of this is the practical implementation side of things, right? But on the theoretical side, they will teach you some statistics, which is very essential for data science. And you might implement everything, and if your statistical assumptions are wrong, your implementation is not worth a whole lot, right? So they give you a good intro to that theory. So I think from a data science point of view, these are all fundamentals that everyone should learn. And then you take that extra step, depending on your area of interest, right? So if you want to be an analyst, maybe you learn a quick, analysis service and analysis tool. It could be Power BI, or it could be IBM's SSIS, or there's numerous ones in the industry. And they're all very similar. They look a little different, but all the functions underneath are pretty much the same. And then if you're interested in the dashboarding visualization part of data science, then you could go a different route. You could learn a couple of JavaScript libraries. You could go learn Tableau or ClickView, or there's a bunch of these tools. Or if your company's cloud native, then their services on AWS that give you the same functionality. A couple of other things that you want to get sharpened on, like data types, data structures, like event-driven flows and parallelism, parallel computing. And given enough time, like 6 months to a year, maybe you could get at all three of these streams. Move from a beginner to a novice, right, or an intermediate level in all of these skills, and that'll make you a good candidate to interview for any of these entry-level jobs.
And now moving on to the next question, and that is also for those folks, because you have been the interview processes, right, with multiple companies, and your journey actually started in different way, and then things could have changed in the interview perspective as well. So it would be really great if you can throw some light on the interview process part as well, like how it will look like for the data analyst, how many number of rounds will be there, and in each round what kind of questions they can expect.
Especially in the data science field, people are always looking for problem solvers, right? And that's true with engineers as well. But with data science, the interviews are really valuing you for your broad approaches to solving different types of problems, especially when they're novel and no one's in the company or in the team has even thought about those things. So they like to see your approach to problem solving, right? Some of my interviews had estimation or approximation type questions. For doing X, like how many days does it take? X could be like building a 10-kilometer wall. And since you're going for a very specific role in the data industry, I mean, it's essential that whatever you put on your resume, they're bound to ask you questions on that, and you got to be prepared for it. So it's one thing to have all the keywords in to get to the interview, but then once you're at the interview, you have to make sure you know things about all those keywords.
Right.
That's where you'll get trapped. So it's a double-edged sword, right? You don't want to have too many fancy keywords in there that goes beyond your knowledge, but you don't want to undersell yourself as well. So that's more of an art than a science, how you can build a resume so that you dictate what kind of questions you're going to get in the interview.
Correct.
And that's something that Odin School definitely helps you out with, right? Like they do a bunch of professional grooming, and they help you build your resume in a sense, in a way that is appealing to a potential recruiter. So yeah, those are some stages, you'd say. And there are some companies I've heard from friends and connections, right, that they do dig into deeper level of data structures and some algorithms, and they might have a coding interview. Then some of them also kind of have a design interview based on which company and what sort of project they're trying to hire for.
I see.
But these are exceptions, right? This is not the general norm. But everywhere you need to know your concepts. You need to know your base fundamental libraries, and you need to be analytical in your thinking. If you want to be in the data field, you should always be asking for more data and making decisions or giving answers based on that data.
Got it.
So if you can go with that mindset and show them that's the kind of person you are, that's how you're going to work, and these are not things that they have to teach you once they hire you, then you're in a very strong position to actually get selected.
Okay.
Right? Even if your tech stack is not a perfect match, that's fine. That little skill, the company will take it upon themselves to teach you in a training session or teach you while you're on the job. But some of these other things, they can invest that kind of time in teaching you all of this. So go in with that attitude and it's definitely going to help.
So let's say anybody have more than 2-3 years of gap, right, in their profile, job or break, anything. So what kind of projects they can work with respect to the data analyst job role, and how can they make their portfolio very strong to get shortlisted for the interviews?
When it comes to projects, identify projects which you can relate to the problem, or like you understand why. Again, it goes back to the why are we doing this, right? So find a project which is relatable, right? So once you find that project which is relatable, then delve deeper into it and assess what kind of impact, bringing about a solution to this problem, what impact does it create, right? That assessment is very important than how you're going to do the project.
Okay.
Right? Because in an interview process, what they're going to ask is, what project did you work on? And what were your approaches to the solutions of those problems? No one's going to really ask you about what tech stack you use.
Okay.
Right? And even if they do ask, it's a pretty simple answer, which has no ambiguity in it, right? You used whatever you used. But the novelty factor is always in how you approach things. So that's one you want to drive. So don't take like dummy projects given to you by someone. Yeah, right? Explore your projects, use a platform like Kaggle maybe, and then go see what kind of problems are asked, or ask a mentor at Odin School, right? And they'll stick you with a project that is of your liking, that you're interested in, because and they do have a lot of industry connections, so they might have a sample project that they'd like you to work on. And because once you do that, it becomes much easier for you to communicate the project. Just doing a project by itself has no value. The value lies in you communicating your learnings from that project to someone else, right? That's where the value lies. Doing 100 projects is not as good as doing one project and knowing it very well and having the ability to communicate your findings and learnings from that project to another person.
Correct.
So that would just be the broad thing. On a more particular examples, I usually, when I got started, I like doing projects in NLP, right? And I also liked doing projects in anomaly detection. So those are the kind of projects that I was looking at. I wasn't too interested in like computer vision and some IoT based projects. You find a lot of these, and some of them look very fancy, but like at an enterprise level, I thought NLP and fraud detection probably are more tuned to the industry, and they probably have robust solutions that I can study, right? So that's how I approached it. But to each their own liking, right? So make sure you find something that you're passionate in, and you can communicate the impact of that problem and the real need for a solution to your potential interviewer.
I'll be moving on to the next question, and that is related to the salary and the compensation part. So coming from the non-tech fields, right? How much salary as aspiring data professionals we can expect in the industry?
If you're good with your subject and you have bare minimum communication, I would say you're not gonna get anything less than 5 lakhs.
Okay.
Right. That's a base. Right. In 2022, with the kind of inflation and the labor tightness in the labor market, you can confidently go in with an expectation that you'll be recruited for 5 lakhs, but that's the absolute minimum. If you consider yourself special, right, in any of these skills, it will be technical, be it communication-wise, being the ability to work in teams, the ability to write good documentation, or special knowledge of particular domains. So these are all skills that come in with you as a resource, right? And I'd say go add in 1 lakh for every skill that you feel you're better than the average. So if you're above average in a particular domain, bump up 1 lakh. If you're above average in documentation, bump up 1 lakh. Right? If you're really good at communication, bump up 1 lakh. So that'd be generally how I approach it. Because you can only bargain for skills that you consider yourself above the average.
Correct.
And the other skills you just have to deal with being average at them, right? So yeah, so for a decent candidate, getting something in the range of 5 to 10 lakhs should be very reasonable.
Okay.
And the upper limit, humans are really special. So there are some special humans who have upper limits in the crores.
So I have just one last question for you, and that would be the end of our podcast as well. The data analyst field, right? Is it the safest and the easy option for non-tech folks to kickstart their journey in the big data domain? If yes, then why? Like, why it is the safest and easiest option?
Okay, let me start with a paradox, right? So whatever is safe at entry is also the riskiest to maintain.
Yeah.
Because if it's safe and if it's easy, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is gonna be your competitor. So you really want to, if you're investing time, you want to invest time in learning the hard things, not learning the easy things. So in like business terms, you'd call it a moat, right? So how much are you resilient to competition? So you always want to be above average in everything that you do. And so I'm not going to say anything about the data science industry is easy. It's just that programming might seem a little intimidating for non-tech folk, and data science is less intimidating, right? Because you don't see lines of code and all of that. But that being said, if you're just average in the data science industry, that just means you're replaceable. If you're coming in it because it's easy, you're not going to last very long. That's all I'm going to say, right? So every field's easy that way, and every field's hard that way. So think about it as a challenge. Don't read the first chapter and make decisions. Maybe open the book into like the 18th chapter and see if you're actually still interested or this makes sense to you. Because not a lot of people even get to the 18th chapter. Take that jump ahead, look at the tough questions and see if you're interested. And once you're in and you have the skill, your work is very impactful. So it's not like you're dealing with day-to-day tickets. You actually do impactful work. You get given time to do your impactful work, and it's a lot of mental work. So the work's really good. It's not easy. And if you're interested, it'll be really good.
Thank you so much, Rohith, for explaining it in detail and putting your opinion and experience about the data analyst job profile and how easy it can be for the transition purpose. So thanks for all those sort of details. And honestly speaking, Rohith, your experience was truly amazing, truly inspiring, and I can feel the kind of hustle you have done, the kind of failures you have seen. So from the tech perspective, non-tech perspective, and personal life experience perspective, this podcast was super informative, super amazing, and I truly loved it, and I can feel the same for the audience as well. So from my side and from the whole audience side, thank you so much for joining me in this podcast. This was truly amazing.
Thank you.
So that's what I had for you guys in this podcast. I know it is super motivating, and I can see that you guys are also feeling Really confident? If yes, then make sure to like this video and share it with your fellow friends. And if you are watching any of my video for the very first time, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button and press the notification icon. I will see you guys in the next week with another amazing podcast. Till then, just stay safe, stay home, take care of yourself and your family too.